In March 2026, the Strait of Hormuz shuts down. 20% of the world's seaborne crude oil stops moving overnight. The International Energy Agency calculates the resulting freeze as the largest single supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. To find a comparable shock to the system, you have to look back half a century ago. The physical shortages, sudden rationing, and immediate societal panic mirror the severe energy crises of the 1970s, that compressed into a matter of days. The immediate reality is millions of tons of energy infrastructure sitting idle. Tankers carrying 1/5 of the globe's petroleum and a massive share of its liquefied natural gas are physically trapped inside the Persian Gulf, unable to cross the blockaded strait. As Gulf nations drop 10 million barrels of daily production, Brent crude prices spike past $120 per barrel. The secondary collapse hits gas markets. Qatar Energy declares force majeure on all exports, completely halting global liquefied natural gas deliveries. The Gulf Cooperation Council states rely on the strait for their energy exports and 80% of their food imports. The blockade triggers a systemic collapse of their entire economic model, effectively holding the global energy market hostage. The response from the United States and Israel is swift and kinetic. Operation Epic Fury targets the exact infrastructure presumed to be enforcing the blockade, aiming to systematically dismantle Iran's conventional military capabilities from the air. By traditional military metrics, the operation is a highly effective campaign. Precision strikes obliterate large-scale shipyards and conventional naval vessels, achieving a 66% degradation of established missile production sites within weeks. The campaign executes a decapitation strike, a targeted assassination aimed at removing the supreme command layer of an enemy force. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and several senior commanders at the top of the hierarchy are eliminated. Yet, despite the total destruction of the primary naval fleet and the elimination of the state's highest political and military leadership, the Strait of Hormuz remains entirely impassable. The economic crash actually accelerates. Striking conventional bases and eliminating generals did not reopen the shipping lanes. The traditional military hierarchy was not the mechanism enforcing the blockade. Western counter-proliferation strategy has long relied on the choke point theory. To stop a nation from building high-end ballistic missiles, intelligence agencies track and intercept the large, highly specialized military-grade components required to assemble them. The axis of resistance bypassed this entirely. Instead of moving finished weapon systems, they shifted to a decentralized kit and assembly model, breaking logistics down into high-value, low-volume shipments. The engine driving this shift is COTS, or commercial off-the-shelf technology. Weapons manufacturers replaced proprietary, heavily sanctioned military hardware with readily available civilian-grade microelectronics, like basic drone flight controllers and agricultural GPS units. A $200 flight controller bought on a global e-commerce platform, when paired with an anti-jamming filter, provides these low-cost loitering munitions with the exact same cruise accuracy that used to require massive state-level inertial navigation systems. By atomizing the necessary technology into consumer packaging, the logistical signature of a weapon shipment shrinks to almost nothing. These civilian microchips slip through international customs undetected. You cannot ban the global trade of civilian microchips without inflicting collateral damage on the global tech economy. Against this strategy, traditional military blockades and sanctions act as a sieve, not a wall. Because the microelectronics are imported piecemeal, the Axis forces no longer require massive, centralized manufacturing plants, the exact kind of facilities targeted by Operation Epic Fury. The factory itself has been digitized. Production relies on CAD/CAM, computer-aided design, and computer-aided manufacturing. The blueprint for a lethal drone is now just an encrypted file sent via satellite link to a remote laptop. The new physical assembly line consists of industrial-grade 3D printers and CNC routers. These operate deep inside dispersed garage networks and rock-hewn subterranean complexes like Imod 4, laying down internal structures and engine mounts on site.
A proxy cell in a remote highland does not need to wait for a shipping container of spare wings to arrive from a central hub. They print the exact replacement parts they need using generic plastic polymers and resins. Prior to the moment they are assembled and loaded with explosives, these raw filaments and metal tubings are entirely pre-lethal. They are legally and visually indistinguishable from standard industrial plumbing and manufacturing supplies. Striking a warehouse full of generic plastic tubing achieves zero strategic degradation. If a node is destroyed, the network transmits the file and prints a new assembly line elsewhere. This decentralized structure explains why eliminating top generals did not paralyze the proxy forces on the ground. The organization transitioned from a rigid military hierarchy to an automated digital neural network. Proxy units don't wait for direct orders. Using pre-programmed responses, if communication with leadership is severed, the unit automatically shifts to its next predefined objective. It functions as a swarm intelligence. Eliminating the central command node is like removing a queen from a hive. The worker nodes possess all the instructions they need to continue enforcing the blockade on their own. Command is no longer a vulnerable person. It is a highly resilient digital protocol. Consequently, human assassinations are strategically irrelevant to halting the physical strikes on shipping vessels. Even distributed and cheap, these local drone cells still require protection against the highly advanced air forces and satellite reconnaissance systems deployed by the United States and Israel. To survive, proxy forces deploy modular air defense architectures like the Cordad and Sayat-3G systems, establishing highly mobile, localized radar denial bubbles directly over their launch sites. These defense networks are no longer strictly Iranian. They represent a deep integration of the broader military alignment: hardware from China, software from Russia, infrastructure from Iran, and technology from North Korea. By utilizing sensor fusion, the merging of data from multiple distinct tracking sources into a single operational picture, these systems link Chinese Beidou satellite navigation with advanced anti-stealth radars. This makes the proxy weapons highly resilient to Western electronic jamming. These proxy forces act as a live testing ground for advanced Sino-Russian electronic warfare. By integrating these systems, the network generates a digital shield that complicates the task of Western air superiority, protecting the decentralized nodes from precision strikes. With the strait locked down by a resilient proxy network, the global economic contagion spreads. Massive commercial fleets abandon the Middle East entirely, forcing global shipping to completely reroute around the Cape of Good Hope. In the United States, the sudden surge in oil prices complicates the inflation outlook. High energy costs act as a massive tax on logistics, aggressively eroding consumer purchasing power and alarming economic policymakers. The devastation hits Europe even harder. Dutch natural gas benchmarks double, pushing inflation past 5%. The European Central Bank is forced to halt planned interest rate cuts, confronting a severe period of stagflation, a combination of stagnant economic growth and high inflation. Across the developing world, the supply of Gulf sulfur and urea is severed. This abruptly doubles global fertilizer costs, throttling agricultural yields and triggering a severe long-term food security crisis. The asymmetric math is direct. The deployment of $200 civilian chips in the Middle East translates into industrial closures in Europe and critical food shortages across Asia. The 2026 blockade exposes a flaw in modern military strategy. Leveling the physical landscape of conventional naval bases and missile silos achieves nothing if the decentralized digital layer driving the attack remains intact. Operation Epic Fury expended billions of dollars in precision-guided munitions to degrade an enemy that sustained its blockade using commercial plastics and open-source software, operating for pennies on the dollar. Global economic security cannot be guaranteed by counting destroyed weapons caches or crossing high-ranking commanders off a target list. We must recalibrate our concept of deterrence for an era where the enemy's command is a protocol and their supply chain is the global civilian economy itself.